So when we're doing self-care and life is good, it's kind of just like icing on the cake. It's a great practice, but self-care is also like necessary when we are going through a challenging time. Those are where most, our survival patterns will come up to help us manage and tolerate our feelings. And typically those survival patterns aren't always helpful, sustainable, or esteemable. So self-care never hurt nobody. We're going to walk out of here today with 6 ways that you can show up and be loving for yourself this week. And I promise you, it will not hurt you. And it also sends a very important message through our actions to ourselves and our parts of self, like our inner child. And the message is that we matter. We matter enough to be a priority, and we matter enough to show up for. Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it, and let's do it together. Okay, so I'm having some tea because it is winter in the D, and if I have not said this already on this podcast, I live outside of Detroit, Michigan, and it's really dry here. And so as much as I did not want to be drinking on this podcast, I'm going to have some tea because otherwise I'm going to be clearing my throat this entire podcast. So welcome back to Grow with Robin Breckenridge. Today, we are going to break down what real self-care actually looks like. Not just another thing to add to your to-do list, but a system that helps you take care of yourself in a way that feels real, sustainable, and aligned with your actual life. I am very aware that there are a lot of podcasts out here on this topic. There's a lot of information out there. And so today I'm hoping to come to you guys with a system that you can walk away with and prioritize some self-care in your life. Because here's the thing. Most people only prioritize 1 or 2 areas of self-care naturally while completely neglecting others. So you might be great at, keeping up with your exercise routine, but maybe you avoid dealing with your finances. Or maybe you have strong friendships, but completely disregard showing up for your emotional well-being. So self-care isn't just one thing, it's multidimensional. And when we approach it that way, it creates a foundation that supports us at every level. So today we're going to walk through the 6 areas of self-care that I use in my own life, in my self-care practices, and that I've taught thousands of people. We're going to do a quick assessment of where you are right now, not so that everybody can cringe, but we have to start with a baseline. We have to know where we're at. So the whole point of this system is to improve where you currently are, but we do need to have a snapshot of where you are. And then to be able to set realistic goals to take into your week. So by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear framework for building self-care into your life in a way that actually makes a difference. So here's the kicker. This isn't just about feeling better. This is also about building self-trust, because when you show up for yourself consistently, even in small, tiny ways, you prove to yourself that you can be counted on. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into in my next episode. We're going to talk a lot about building a foundation of self-trust. And so this is kind of one of the steps on that staircase to creating more self-trust in your life. In the busyness of life, which I know because I'm a very busy person, with its constant demands and distractions, it's so easy to disconnect from yourself without even realizing it. You can slip into survival mode, treading water, staying above water, doing what needs to be done, keeping up, holding it all together. But in the background, without a dramatic moment or a clear, loud sign, it happens. Self-neglect quietly unfolds. And I know this firsthand because my self-neglect is very sneaky. So this episode is a call to come back home to yourself, because self-care isn't just about what you do. It's about how you do it. It's about the motivation being a way to connect to yourself, to build self-respect and self-trust and self-esteem. It's about showing up for yourself in ways maybe you never learned how to, or maybe you never had the luxury of stepping out of survival mode and being able to intentionally show up for yourself. And if you're someone who grew up in any kind of emotional or physical neglect, then self-care is just not second nature. And there's a pretty interesting thing that can happen in our lives, which is what was done to us, we will do to ourselves in an unconscious way. So for those of us who have experienced some level of neglect, which there's a lot of people out there that have, you have to intentionally show up and build your self-care practice step by step, action by action. And of course, I'm always going to be completely honest on this podcast. I've been teaching this type of material for almost 10 years. I've implemented it in my life for that amount of time. And if I am not intentional to this day with my self-care, it doesn't happen. And that might be relatable for you. I mean, this is someone who I teach this for a living. And if I do not write it down every day, it doesn't happen. So today, let's go beyond the surface level and explore really, how do we implement ways to show up for ourselves that are sustainable? Because self-care is definitely foundational. You know, I have a lot of people come into this work because someone's told them about the way that I teach boundaries, or the way that I teach parts of self-work, developing a relationship with your inner child and your inner teenager. What's at the core of this work is a self-care practice. It is the foundation of everything that I teach. So self-care really isn't just about the action. It's about, the secondary benefits are that you build self-esteem, because self-esteem is not just something we have or a feeling. It comes from doing esteemable actions. And that means esteemable actions towards ourselves. So when we are in avoidance, when we are in neglect, it's not building esteem. And I'm sure if you really think about that in your life, you can agree. It helps us manage our feelings in non-harmful ways. So when we're doing self-care and life is good, it's kind of just like icing on the cake. It's a great practice. But self-care is also like necessary when we are going through a challenging time. Those are where most, our survival patterns will come up to help us manage and tolerate our feelings. And typically those survival patterns aren't always helpful, sustainable, or esteemable. So self-care never hurt nobody. We're going to walk out of here today with 6 ways that you can show up and be loving for yourself this week. And I promise you, it will not hurt you. And it also sends a very important message through our actions to ourselves and our parts of self, like our inner child. And the message is that we matter. We matter enough to be a priority, and we matter enough to show up for. So self-care isn't just a one-size-fits-all approach. It's definitely not just about taking time for yourself. It's multidimensional. And when we nurture the 6 areas I'm about to tell you about, we create a foundation for well-being that allows us to function at our best and show up securely in our life and relationships. So those 6 areas of self-care are physical, emotional, intellectual, financial, spiritual, and social. And as I go through each one of these, I want you to think about where you naturally take care of yourself and where you tend to neglect yourself. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is physical self-care. That would be the way you take care of your physical body. So that would look like movement, sleep, hydration, eating nourishing food. In the last episode, I mentioned a story about how I would often prioritize working and not eat until late hours of the evening when I was done. And, that impacted my energy, my mood. By the time I was done, I was so hungry that I would, tend to go towards things that weren't maybe the healthiest for me. So making sure that you're eating regularly, that you're eating in a balanced way, and that you are showing up for your medical care, which I know for some people can seem like a no-brainer. But for a lot of us, especially those of us that grew up in neglect, or for myself, I have ADHD as well. So slowing down to actually manage dentist appointments and medical appointments and follow through takes intention and effort. So we want to make sure that you are taking care of your physical body. And that really just means, are you listening to your body's needs? Are you pushing yourself past exhaustion? I have a saying that you can't bargain with your bandwidth. And I believe that that's true. We all have a bandwidth every day. And sometimes we have a greater bandwidth than other days. But that definitely impacts our self-care. I mean, there are days that I don't have it in me to show up to all 6 areas of self-care, but maybe I can prioritize one. So we really want to look at, how are you taking care of your physical body? The second one is emotional self-care. That's really, how are you managing and tolerating your feelings and showing up for the emotional part of you? So that can look like journaling, going to therapy or getting a coach, setting emotional boundaries, checking in with yourself. I mean, there's so many things we can do here, and I'll give you guys some examples. But it's really about, like, are you checking in with yourself? Are you showing up for the emotional part of your life? Because in these 6 areas, obviously you're one person. These are not separate areas. But what ends up happening is that if we neglect certain areas, they will bleed over into other areas. So very often I've had people come to me and say, like, oh, I have a financial issue, and I have a shopping problem. I'm buying things all the time. And when we really dig into it, what's really happening is that there is an emotional need that is not being met, or there's an emotional issue that isn't being attuned to. And because of that, then we're managing that emotional need in a way that's maladaptive. It's not helpful. Now we're going and spending, and now we have a financial problem. So we're calling it a financial problem, but it's really a result of not showing up for ourselves emotionally. So in my opinion, and I know this is the arena in which I work, but I think that if we are not showing up for ourselves emotionally, we're going to have some serious issues in the other 5 categories of the self-care process. In addition, there are 3 components of the definition of emotional intelligence. The first one is that we can recognize feelings in ourselves and others. Second one is that we have the ability to recognize those feelings and help people cheer up and calm down. And if anybody that's listening has a background coming from a dysfunctional family or experiencing trauma, we're like really good at the second part. In fact, I was so good at the second part that I thought I was like the most emotionally intelligent person on the planet when I first kind of got into doing my own personal development work. But the third component of the definition is that you have the ability to manage and tolerate your feelings and use your feelings for tasks like thinking and problem solving. Now, the third part was what really kind of redefined how emotionally intelligent I was at that time, because I did not have ways to manage and tolerate my feelings in ways that didn't harm myself and other people at that time. And I wasn't using my feelings to help me in my life, like to help me in tasks like thinking and problem solving. My feelings were getting in the way, is what I thought. But really what was happening is I just didn't know how to manage them. So yes, it is totally possible that you can use your feelings to help you in your life, but we have to show up to them first. And that's what we're talking about today. The third one is intellectual self-care. So that really means, how are you growing your intellect, creativity, and interests? Normally, when I present this to people, sometimes they have an immediate shame response. Maybe they weren't quote unquote book smart in school, or maybe they're not somebody who likes to read. That's okay. If you heard that definition, I said grow intellect, creativity, and interests. Intellect is one of those parts. And don't get me started. There is a million different forms of intelligence other than being quote unquote book smart. So what we want to look at is, are you reading anything? Are you learning anything new? Do you have curiosity in your life? What content are you consuming? Is it meaningful? Is it nourishing you versus depleting you? That would be like so many of us that can pick up our phone in our hand and mindlessly scroll and not really be growing our creativity, intellect, and interests. So are you intentionally learning and growing, or are you just consuming what's in front of you? The fourth is financial self-care. So that's really like the health of your wealth, your relationship with your money. And this category is not just for people who don't have enough money. I think that every single client that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with people from literally all different types of walks of life and financial positions, we do have to show up to our relationship with money. And if there is anywhere that I believe attachment styles blaringly show up, it is in our relationship with our money. We tend to show up in one of four ways to our finances: anxiously, where we might be a little bit controlling about it; avoidantly, where we don't want to look at it; ambivalently, where we're doing both. We're like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money, or I shouldn't be spending. Okay, then I see this dress that I love and I need it, and I don't really want to look at my money and how this is going to impact me. And then I buy it, and then I have buyer's remorse and I feel anxious all over again. Or you're showing up to securely to your money, which means you have information about where your money is going. There's intention in it. And that way our nervous system can calm down. So are you actively working towards financial stability or financial esteem, or is money a constant source of stress and avoidance? The fifth area is spiritual self-care. And that means connecting with something bigger than yourself. So that doesn't just have to be religion. I've, again, worked with all different types of people with all different types of spiritual practices and beliefs, and this can apply to everyone. So that might look like a meditation practice, a prayer practice. That might look like time in nature. I've had clients who don't believe in God, but they do believe in nature, or there's something that they connect with that feels bigger than them. And it also can just be reflective practices. It could be connecting with your higher self. So it doesn't have to be just a religious practice. So do you have something that grounds you in your life when life feels overwhelming? Or do you have something that when we feel powerless in this life, because we do, that you can surrender that powerlessness over to? And my favorite definition of surrender is giving over, not giving up. So that just means that sometimes in this life, we truly are powerless, and we can't control the outcomes of things. So if we can say, God, universe, infinite intelligence, nature, trees, whatever it is that you believe, like, I'm going to give this over to you because I don't have the power to control it. And that we can trust that that thing that is bigger than us is that everything is working out for our highest good. So the last one is social self-care, which just really means what are the qualities of your relationships and your connections? Because we are hardwired for connection in this life. And as much as the work that I do is about self-connection, because I believe we have to start with self-connection to truly be able to connect in healthy ways with other people, we do need to connect in healthy ways with other people. So that looks like meaningful connections, having relationships, again, that nourish you versus deplete you, that you feel energized when you're around these people and you feel supported. So are you surrounding yourself with people who uplift and support you? Now, I want you to take a second and I want you to just rate yourself very quickly in each one of these areas. So we're going to use a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being that it needs a lot of work, and 10 being that it's amazing. So no judgment here. Again, this can feel a little cringy because sometimes we're like, yikes, I really thought I was showing up here, but now that I think about it, the way you explained it, I'm not. Or, ooh, I've been, putting off looking at my finances or showing up to my physical body. And again, this is not here to overwhelm you, but we do have to get into a place of reality to be able to create change in your life. So no judgment, just an honest check-in. I want you to just take a moment to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in each one of those areas. So that would be physically, emotionally, intellectually, financially, spiritually, and socially. And you can really do it in either one of 2 ways. It could be like, this is how I feel in these areas. Like I feel like emotionally, I'm, listening to this podcast. I've got a professional that I work with. I'm journaling. Like that feels like an 8. But financially, I really haven't been looking at my finances and I felt pretty stressed out. So that's feeling more like a 3. I'm feeling like I have a lot of anxiety there. Another way you can approach it is just kind of to look at how do you feel like you are showing up in each one of those areas. There's really no wrong way of doing that. So take a moment, rate yourself, scale of 1 to 10 in each one of those 6 areas. Okay, awesome. So most of us tend to prioritize 1 or 2 of these areas while neglecting the rest, and that's where the imbalance happens. If we ignore an area too long, then like I mentioned in the past episode, there's just a consequence to self-neglect and self-abandonment every time. Sometimes it's very overt in our face. Other times it's sneaky and covert. Maybe we get sick. Maybe we manifest disease in our body. So today is the day. Let's start showing up. If we're physically exhausted, it impacts our moods and our relationships. That's kind of going back to that concept about we can't bargain with our bandwidth. So if we avoid dealing with our emotions and they pile up, this becomes overwhelming. And then really the most protective thing that we have on board to do is avoid the overwhelm. And again, that is not a sustainable strategy or a sustainable way to show up for yourself. If we neglect our finances, it adds stress to our daily life. But when all 6 of these areas are nurtured, which would be the opposite of neglect, even in small ways, we create a foundation of stability within ourselves. That home that is inside of us feels a lot safer and nurturing. It doesn't mean that we're perfect. It just means that we're showing up for ourselves as consistently as we can. Self-care is definitely not a straight line, and it's not sustainable all the time. So I have a lot of people that will start this practice and then go, oh man, I fell off, or I haven't done these things in so long. Well, guess what? The person that gets paid to teach people about self-care does the same thing. I fall off and on my self-care because I'm human. But again, this practice of these 6 areas helps me just dust off and get back up faster and faster every time. So showing up for ourselves builds self-trust. And that's, again, what we're going to be talking about in our next episode. Because taking care of yourself is one thing, but trusting ourselves enough to keep doing it, ooh, that's where real transformation and growth happens. So now that you've rated yourself in these 6 areas, let's talk about what do we do next. The goal here is not to fix everything overnight. Instead, start small. When we're talking about building self-care as a practice and all of those amazing benefits that I listed earlier, it really does happen from the micro acts of self-care that we do. So starting small is exactly where we should be. You can pick one area that's been neglected and set a realistic, doable goal for the week. You can set one goal for each category, or just focus on one goal at a time. Typically, when I have people come in, and this is the part that I can't do here on this podcast because I can't individually know where each one of you are. But when clients come in, I'll usually invite them to set one goal in each area for the week, and then continue to invite yourself every week to set new goals, new or old goals, I should say. Maybe you set goals one week and you go, oh, well, that was amazing and that worked. Great. Do it again. We don't have to reinvent a wheel. We don't have to make this super complex. But I need you to check in with yourself because I'm not seeing you guys individually. If setting 6 goals feels like trying to climb up that mountain in one shot, that's too much. And we're going to be setting you up to get yourself into overwhelm and probably get back into a pattern of avoidance. So I really want you to, from a realistic place, check in with yourself and decide if we're setting one goal in one area, maybe you've got enough gas in the tank to set 3 goals this week. But if you have enough bandwidth, then start with 6 small, simple goals, which I'm going to give you guys some examples. And then we want to make them simple but measurable. So when we're setting a goal, saying something like, I'm going to be kinder to myself this week as an emotional goal, it's not really measurable. But if we say, hey, you know what? I am going to start a journaling practice where I write down 3 to 5 things that I'm proud of myself for 2 to 3 times this week. That's measurable. We can come back and look at that goal and say, did we achieve it? Did we show up? And when I say the word goal, I've definitely turned some people off with that word, especially if you work in corporate America. And we've heard a lot about SMART goals. Goal is just an easy way to describe what we're doing here. But really all we're doing is just writing down intentional ways that you can be loving for yourself. So it doesn't have to be an overwhelming thing like, oh no, more goals. So let me give you some examples of what goals in each category might look like. And I'm actually going to use my self-care practice just because it's easy and at the forefront of my mind. So for my emotional goal this week, and this is typically my emotional goal every week, I start my morning off with a daily devotional that has to do with codependency recovery. And the book is called The Language of Letting Go by Melody Beattie. And what I love about this book is you can either order it in a paper copy or you can download the app on your phone and it just sends you every day the devotional for the day. It does not take more than 2 to 3 minutes to read the devotional. And if anybody, if codependency work resonates with you, that book is a must have. So for an emotional goal, I have many more emotional goals that I show up to in my daily practice. But for right now, I want you guys to start with just one. So I start with a daily devotional. In addition, I do a breathing practice every morning. And journaling could be something that you put in here. Signing up to work with someone weekly could be something. Listening to an emotionally based podcast that helps you, learn some emotional tools. Anything here is helpful. As an example for an intellectual goal, that you could read 10 minutes before going to bed. Now, what I got in the habit of doing is I love to read, but I just got a little bit overwhelmed. My bandwidth for consuming new content got stretched in recent times. So I put a book next to my bed and I just say that every night before I go to sleep that I will read something in that book. Now, some days it's a chapter, some days it's a page, some days I read a paragraph, and there are some days that I read a sentence. And the reason I do that is not because I'm being rigid. It's because I'm holding a promise to myself. And we're going to talk more about this in the next episode that has everything to do with self-trust. If I had a relationship in my life where they told me they were going to show up for me and they consistently didn't, I would not trust them. How is that any different in the relationship with myself? So when I pick up that book and I read a sentence, all I'm saying is to that little girl in me, hey, I told you I would do something and I'm going to follow through in alignment with the bandwidth that I have today. A financial goal would be, an example of a financial goal would be, possibly looking at some sort of budgeting app, if that's helpful. Again, budgeting is not just for people that don't have enough money. Budgeting is just a way to clearly know where all your money is going and to have agency in that because you know. So there are so many amazing budgeting apps out there. I like YNAB. I like Rocket Money. There is something called Money Canvas that I just heard about, which is a free resource where it's a nonprofit that gives you a 3-step system to show up in a basic way to kind of the basics and foundations of healthy care for your finances. So that's one thing, but it also could be parenting yourself financially. I can speak from experience that there's been some times in my life that treat yourself felt like it was deserved all the time. And although I do deserve to treat myself here and there, or as much as I feel aligned to do, I also have to parent that part of me because there's a part of me that thinks I deserve everything, despite what my budget has to say. So, we could look at a budgeting app. You could look at, maybe it's like I've been putting my taxes off and I need to just call the accountant. Again, it could be small or big, but we want to just show up differently to your money than you currently are. A social example would be maybe you haven't connected with someone that you really love and care about in a while because life has gotten busy. And so maybe it's just scheduling a text or a time to catch up. Maybe you haven't been able to connect with your parents or family members. And it's as simple as going, hey, do you want to set up a Friday FaceTime coffee? And we just for 20 minutes catch up on a Friday. Because, it's nice to have those type of connections in your life. And a spiritual example for a goal might be spending 5 minutes in a meditation practice. There are so many apps out there. There are so many things on YouTube. Maybe it's starting in the morning. I love a guided meditation. If you put me to sit with myself for 45 minutes with nothing, I don't know what would happen. It sounds terrifying. And maybe that means I should have someone on here who's a meditation expert to help me. But I love a guided meditation. So guided meditation, maybe it's, I really love a spiritual community, but I haven't made time to connect with them. So going to that maybe once a week or once a month. Daily devotionals are wonderful for spiritual practices, getting out in nature. Something that's helped me even in the winter is just getting up in the morning and getting outside. I know that Gabby Bernstein has a wonderful walking meditation that I've recommended to a lot of people. So these are all examples of ways that you can show up to set goals in each one of these areas. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to mention. Creativity is a really important part of setting goals here because it doesn't have to be black and white. In addition, there might be some of you rolling your eyes like, oh my God, I've already tried this a million times. I've already tried to work out. I've tried to lose weight. And here's the deal. Consciousness and awareness does not prevent you from falling down or falling into the same holes or ruts that you have in your life. What it does is it allows you to dust off and get back up. So I am going to ask that either you try again or that we lean into creativity to come up with some new form of self-care. Like, for instance, exercise. I will relanguage exercise for people to movement. And then let's say maybe you loved dancing when you were younger and you haven't done that in a minute, and exercise is not something that you love doing. Go on YouTube and find a dance video. Start dancing again. I have a client right now that's like, ugh, I hate exercise, but man, I loved playing hockey when I was younger. And it's just not something I prioritize as an adult. And he walked out of my office and said, I'm calling up my buddy and I'm joining the beer league. So the goal is like, we could set some of these goals and kill multiple birds with one stone, right? Like maybe hockey is a way for that person to emotionally show up for themselves and they get a physical benefit. So if you don't want to write 6 goals down and you can look at, let's see, my breathing practice of box breathing for inhale, count, hold 4, exhale 4, set a timer for 5 minutes, it nails my emotional goal and my spiritual goal. Amazing. Let's do it. Let's get creative. But most importantly, if we operate off of one principle when we're setting self-care goals, it's just do it differently. Okay? If you have always shown up for your money in an avoidant way, just go through a bank statement, take a highlighter. What pink highlighter goes towards, this is what I pay in bills. Orange highlighter goes, this is all the rest of my spending. And you might learn some things about yourself. So remember, creativity, so important in setting goals. And you have the internet. There's a million things out there. There's a trillion. There's more than than a number we can count of options for you to find ways to show up for yourself. Okay. And the second is I really want you to consider that the umbrella of this work is do it differently. If you have been doing it in a way that is not working for you, even if we slightly try to do it differently, that is growth. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation, especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.